Hi, and welcome to Two CPAs in the Mic, the podcast where we talk tax, finance, and all things related to business. Whether you're a business owner, working professional, or someone who wants to start a career in accounting, this is the podcast for you. Hosted by CCK Strategies partners Jeff Frable and Sarah Mays, we dive into relevant business and tax matters with working professionals to make these topics less intimidating, relatable, and dare we say fun? Let's get down to business.
Welcome back to another episode of Two CPAs and the Mic. My name is Jeff Frable. I'm with CCK Strategies, and we are here to cover relevant business and tax topics, apply straight talk, some unexpected humor, and practical information without all the jargon and stuffiness that's normally associated with our industry. We have an amazing episode for today, but as always, I have my super duper co-host, Sarah Mays. What's up, Mays?
Ooh, that was a new one today, Jeff. Super duper. I like it. Hey, everybody.
You're super duper.
Super duper. I am super duper Sarah Mays. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And we have Christy. Christy's back with us. Hey, KP, how are you?
Hi, guys. Glad to be here. Good to be here.
Well, like I said, we have an amazing guest today. We have titled today's show, Entrepreneurialism at a World-Class Level. And in order to do that, you have to have a world-class guest. And we do that. And it's real this time, ladies. We have a world-class athlete with us. We're going to brag about her. Her name is Keira D'Amato. Hello, Keira. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm pumped to be here, and I'm pumped that I don't need to answer any CPA questions. So that was promised me before the podcast recorded. So I'm hoping we stick to that.
Well, and like I told you before, I am just going to get this out of the way that we haven't gone into this a whole lot in a whole lot of detail on the show, but I've run 50 marathons. Sarah's run 3. She's a runner, countless halves. And just to have someone of your stature on the show is really an honor. But some of our listeners may be wondering, well, who is this Keira D'Amato lady? Why is she world class? She only held the American record in the marathon. For how long did you hold that record, Keira?
About 9 months, which if you've ever been pregnant, it either seems like an eternity or like a blink of an eye.
Right.
Well, if someone ever gives you a hard time about that, I would say it's 9 months longer than you held the American record. So she's did you also hold the half marathon record as well?
I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she's quite the stud as a runner, and she's still going strong. She has an amazing story, and we're going to talk about all those things as well as her entrepreneurialism. So if you are a business owner, entrepreneurial business owner, and you're listening today, you're going to want to listen to some of this advice that Keira has. If you are lacing up your shoes to go for a walk or a run, you are really going to enjoy this conversation. So let's get into it, Keira, and just kind of give us we're going to get into more details later, but just give us a high level view of who you are and what you're doing. And it's okay to brag. Give us some of your accomplishments.
All right. Well, my name is Keira D'Amato. I'm a pro runner now for Nike. I kind of came back into the running world in a backwards, upside down, all different kind of scenic route. I ran in high school and in college, and then I quit for almost 10 years and started a family, had 2 kids, started a real estate business, and then I needed something of my own. So I put running back into my life, really just for me. And then after, trying to run a whole 5K without walking, and then trying to run a whole 10 mile and thinking, well, if I can do that, maybe I could do a whole marathon, and ended working my way back up to becoming a Nike sponsored athlete. And I broke the American record in the marathon in 2022. I broke it in the half marathon in 2023. I held actually the world best in the 10 mile for a while. That's also been broken. But the thing is, with these records, you can just put former in front of it. And so I'll always be a former American record holder. So I'm a mom of 2. I'm also still a realtor. And then, I run a lot.
Yeah, you run a lot too. So, and you were telling us you're actually running tomorrow in the U.S. Championships, 10K, right?
Yeah. So I'm typically more of a road runner. People say I'm like, like a feral cat, like I belong on the streets and the roads. So I really like the road running, but every now and then I like to break it down and run a lot of circles around the track. So tomorrow, Thursday, is the US Championships for the track and field. The top 3 people in each event make it to the world team. So, going to see if I could, be part of Team USA for World Championships.
I think it's a little funny, Sarah, because, in our world, we kind of wake up on a Monday and go, hey, I might run the Firecracker 5K on Saturday. And Kira's like, well, I might run the U.S. Championships on Saturday. And
next week, just next week. It's fine.
It's all relative, right? It's all relative. Well, I think, Keira, I think our listeners are really going to get a lot from your story, because like you said, you kind of came in the backdoor way, and it's also applicable to entrepreneurial business owners, because there's a lot of business owners out there that think they have to do something a certain way for it to be perfect. But your journeys have been a little unconventional, and I think they have a great story. So we're really looking forward to kind of jumping into those. But as far as the running goes, and we'll probably talk a little bit about the running first and set the stage, and then kind of transition that into the entrepreneurial spirit that you have. But take us back to the beginning and just talk about your love for running, how that started, and then kind of how you journeyed away from that. And then you talked about how you got back into it. But what got you started from the beginning?
Yeah. So my whole life, I wanted to be a pro athlete, but I wanted to be a pro soccer player. So when I got to high school, I thought that if I joined the cross country team, it would look really good for the soccer coach, because he would see how fast I am and that I like to run and my endurance. So I joined the cross country team, signed up for the first race. And quickly in the first race, I realized like running's not for me. Like everything hurts. Like my lungs were burning, my legs felt heavy. Like I wanted so desperately to quit, but I kept talking back to that little voice, like, I'm not a quitter. I'm going to push through this. I'm going to make it to the finish line. And then this will be the last time I ever run again. And so I worked through all of that, and I ended up winning this race. And it was kind of then that I realized that's what running is all about. It's doing something that scares you a little bit, working through a lot of the pain, a lot of the struggles, and it's coming out on the other side and really proving to yourself you can. And so that's kind of when I learned to fall in love with like the cyclic nature of being scared to run, then it's hard, and then you're really proud that you did it anyways. So after that, I quit soccer and just went all in with running. And so I ran in high school, got a full scholarship to run in college, tried to pursue it a little bit professionally after college, but got injured. And the injury I had, I needed surgery, but it wasn't covered by insurance. So I quit. And I decided to see who else Keira could be, like rather than just a runner. I set out on this journey to see like who else I was. And I think that experiencing failure in that way, because I had all this unfinished business. I wanted to make a national team. I wanted to win a national title. I wanted to set national records. I didn't do that in my first round. So I left with a lot of unfinished business, which felt like a failure. But a really beautiful thing happened after that. I was okay. I was okay with failing. I was okay with walking away. And I mourned those goals, and then I set out on a journey to see who else Keira was. But I think experiencing failure in that way, now coming into round 2, has been so powerful because I'm not afraid of failure. I feel like I can go big and risk it all. And I know what's on the other side of failure is I'll be okay. So I feel like that was a really important lesson that I learned. But for almost the next 10 years of my life, Keira was a runner who didn't run. So I got, started working in the corporate world, and I got brought over. I did the director of marketing at a small business in a running store. Actually has 10 stores in the DC area. So I was the director of marketing there. And then I got pulled over, started my own real estate company. And so, yeah. And then and only then I came back into running, but with this like beautiful perspective of running is so much more than how fast. And I learned all these lessons about life and about running when I wasn't running that I think has set me up to reach even higher heights now in round 2.
Wow. So many great, Christy's touching her. She's
I'm
hitting her
just
hard
like,
spot
wow,
there.
where do I start? I started writing things down. It's these nuggets already, and not only a few minutes in.
Well, a lot
Yeah.
of great nuggets there about fear of failure and coming back. And I want to transition just a little bit now to talk about the American record that you set down in Houston. And well, I was doing some reading in preparing for this, and I read some story somewhere. I'm not sure where it is. You can tell me if it's not true. But there's this story about as you got back into running, you literally, I mean, I thought, well, Keira's always run. She's always blah, 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 whatever. And this story about you went out to run around the block when you wanted to get back into running and you had difficulty. And then, like, what, 6 or 7 years later, you break the American record? Is that real?
It's totally true. So during my halftime show, I didn't run. I went on a CrossFit phase and I went on a cycling journey. And then for a while, I just didn't do anything. And I had 2 kids. I gained way too much weight during those pregnancies. I think a combination of being pregnant, but then a combination of like giving my body everything it wanted, which was carbs, and more carbs. Mm-hmm. And so after having my second kid, I was like, I need to get back and my body's mine again. I knew I wasn't going to have any more kids. So I was like, I'm going to set a really low bar to get me out the door, because in the past, like in my round 1, if I had to run 10 miles and I didn't want to run, I'd say, you know what, just put on your running clothes and get out there and do 2. And then 2 would turn into 5 or 10 or 12. But sometimes just setting that low bar is just enough of a carrot to get you out the door. So after having kids and knowing running was going to feel a lot different, I set a bar that I thought was very low. And I said, I'm going to run for 3 minutes, like 3 whole minutes. Then that's enough that will get me out the door. And surely 3 minutes will turn into 5 minutes. So will turn into 10 or 20. So I got out the door and I started running. I ran as far and as far as I could, as long as I could. I hit the pain cave. I couldn't breathe. Everything felt like so heavy. I looked down at my watch. I stopped running, looked down at my watch, and it was 90 seconds. So I didn't even make it the full 3 minutes. I ran 90 seconds and I stopped and I cried and I walked home and I was like, wow, I am far from where I used to be, but I was such a different person and different athlete that I think that was almost a gift, because I wasn't comparing myself to the best Keira was. I was now Mom Keira, and Mom Keira is exactly 90 seconds running fit. So I gave myself a day off because that really hurt. And then 2 days later, I tried again to run 3 minutes. And eventually I made it 3 minutes and I celebrated like I won the Olympics. And it was about, 5 years, 4 months after that I broke the American record in the marathon.
Wow. That story just kind of blows me away. So,
yes.
So there's hope
but it
for
resonates
everybody that wants to do something great.
So much to this. I think just as if a woman is an athlete or she's never done anything athletic in her life, just that one story, Keira, would have, I think, resonated with so many women, and how challenging it is. We're hard on ourselves, especially after having babies. I mean, there is so much that defines us. And then you nailed it. You made that decision not to compare yourself, not to other people, but to who you were before. Right. And that's just that part of the story. And then you go on and have this amazing accomplishment. That's just mic drop cool.
Well, and I think the coolest thing to me about that run is I didn't have any goals. I wasn't confident enough in myself, like athletically or emotionally or physically. So I had no goals. It was just, what can I do today? And I strung enough of those together. Then I started becoming confident to set goals. But so 5 years later, I break the American record in the marathon, and I go through like first TV interviews, then drug testing, then a press conference, and I'm signing champagne bottles, and I'm, hanging out with kids and kissing babies. I'm doing all the things. And when I finally had a moment to myself, like I went back to my hotel room, I shut the door and I was by myself. And that's when it all hit me. I just cried. Like, I'm talking about crying a lot. I'm actually not that much of a crier, but I cried and I cried and I cried. And I thought so much about how far I've come. And out of everything I've done, the thing that I was most proud of wasn't even breaking the American record that day. It wasn't running with different national championship titles. It was that 3-minute attempted run. That was the thing that I was most proud of, even more so than breaking the American record. It was that I started the journey and that I found the courage to start. And to me, that was almost harder than breaking the American record, was starting the journey in the first place. But I was so thankful I did. And I gave myself a shot to see what could be.
So as you progressed, Keira, and you were getting ready for this race in Houston, were you shooting for something? Were you shooting for the record, or did you just get out there and things felt really good and you just went for it?
I was definitely shooting for it. The marathon that I had run, I guess about a year before, I ran a 2:22 marathon, and that put me 7th on the all-time list for American women. And my first reaction to that was, holy cow, I can't believe I'm top 10. But then my second reaction was 7th? I kind of like 6, 5, 4. I think I want to be number 1. So I was definitely aiming towards that, but I couldn't wrap my head around that goal. Like I couldn't even imagine that I could ever be the fastest woman in American history. So I had to train with specific time goals and not the concept goal. So I was training to run 5:18 for 26.2 miles, and that seemed really reachable to me. But training to break the American record seemed impossible. So I put that out of my mind, and I totally separated the two tasks. And so for me, I had a time goal, and I was running to run that time that day. I didn't even try to connect it with what that time would mean at the finish line.
So by how much did you break the record?
I think it was 24 seconds. So almost a second per mile.
So it wasn't until the very end. When did you know? I mean, was it when you saw the clock at the finish? Of course, you had your Garmin or whatever you were wearing, but you really didn't have a lot of time to celebrate that or think about that, because if you misstepped, you weren't going to get there.
Yeah, pretty quickly on, I didn't feel great. And I kept telling myself, that's okay. Like, I don't feel great in practice, and I still work through it anyways. And there was a kind of a number of things like through the race that just I was like, I don't know if this is going to be my day. And like, I missed a bottle, which I've missed the bottle a lot in practice or in races. So like, I have like a plan B and a plan C, but there was a series of things that I was like, well, maybe this isn't my day. And around 16 miles, like everything hurt. Like my lungs weren't getting enough air. My legs were tired. My hip flexors were raging. And I thought I'm like, okay, well, what if this is not my day? And then I thought about what that meant. Well, I'm going to get this record. I'm going to run this time. So if it's not today, I'm going to finish this race because I'm not a quitter. And then I'm going to need to take a month to recover because this is going to take a lot out of me. Then I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board and do everything I did in this build again to get to this point and find another race with good enough day, good enough weather, good enough course, and then get back to this point at 16 miles and figure out a way to work through it. And that actually felt like more work than just working through it in the moment. So that's when people ask me, what do you think about when you run? It's like a little bit of everything, and it's deep and it's crazy and it's insane. But I decided then in that moment that it was easier for me to break the record today and then never run again ever. So that was the carrot I was dangling. It was like, if I can run this time, if I can run 2:19 in the marathon, I will never have to run again ever, which is a really similar thing that I was thinking in my first race. So I feel like I haven't made much progress mentally. But yeah, so I was running the race that day to break the record and then never run again.
Good advice.
All right, you guys, I'm not a runner, but I have to ask it. I mean, I hear Jeff talk about his experience and have gone through some of that with him. Sarah, when she ran her very first one, and how she has such community within running. And I'm always curious about the why. Why behind what you guys do, which, by the way, is insane and awesome all at the same time. I'm such a fan of what you guys do. So it's that why. I mean, what is it about the why? Because you can say, it's painful, I feel it, but there is just that drive. You've got the goal that's right in front of you. What is the why behind what in the world you do and how it keeps you going? And I love it. And it's probably the whole podcast, but that's what I'm taking away from that one particular race, that monumental race.
I love this question because what I've learned about running is there are an infinite amount of whys people run. And I feel like I've seen so many different whys on the spectrum of I need to get out of the house because I'm a busy mom, or I want to do something that for my physical fitness, or I want to be part of community, or I want to see how fast, I want to see how long. There's infinite amount of whys why people run. And my why has evolved and it's changed. And on that day, I think my why was to stick it to the man.
Yes.
And I think
Nice.
the man, people always ask me, like, who's the man? I'm like, the man.
Who's the man?
Can be whatever you
Whoever
want.
it is, man changes.
But for me, it was so powerful that I am a mother in her late 30s, like a newly sponsored Nike athlete. And a lot of people told me that, you peak in your 20s. So the man is someone that told me I was too old to do what I was doing, And then the man was people saying like, where are your kids right now? Like, are you watching your kids? Can a mother balance this? How does a mother do both? So that was like another man. I felt like there was so many different men that I wanted to step. Probably should say.
Sorry, Jeff.
I was going to say, all of a sudden, I feel very.
Nothing against men.
I don't think it's a gender thing. I think it's just
No,
the obstacle in front of you.
Yes.
I just think in life, there are so many reasons why we can't. We're too busy. We're too old. We're, too whatever. And I think for me, I wanted to show us all what we're capable of. And I think that was like my man, to show everyone what we can do as a collective and just pushing that bar forward. I think for especially mother women runners and older mother women runners, especially in the sport of run. And I'm not trying to say I'm old, but in the sport of professional running, it's a term associated with me a lot. So I like kind of pushing that forward. So I feel like I was doing it for everyone to show us all what we were capable of. And for me, I found when I was running for like a we, it was more powerful than a me. So I think that also like really drove me because I wanted to show us all like what we can do.
We should turn this into.
That's so great.
We should turn this into episode 1 with Keira D'Amato because I could just
Yeah.
so much good
So
stuff
good.
here. Personally and professionally. Okay, so Keira, you broke this record. You're at the top of your, maybe you're not, I'm not gonna say you're at the top of your game because you were very proud of things that you had done that weren't at this level. But there's obviously some recognition, some notoriety that comes with all this. And then Emily Sisson comes along and she breaks your record. Where were you? And I mean, I forget where she did it, but were you watching? And how did you feel when all that happened? I'm sure Emily doesn't listen to our podcast, so it's okay.
She might. This is the best part of the story. I was there.
Oh.
And alongside me was Dina Castor, who I broke Dina's record, and Joan Benoit Nielsen. Dina broke Joan's record. So we had 3 women, the previous 3 women that have held it, and we've held it. I mean, me, the shortest distance of time, but collectively, us 3 women held it for close to 40 years. But I was on the NBC broadcast team. So I was reporting from the lead female vehicle. So I got to see it all go down in first person. And it was really emotional for me, but not in the way like sad of losing it. I knew what it took for me to break through that barrier. And it took everything I had. So when she broke through that barrier of her own and broke through my barrier, I was very emotionally proud, like a proud mother, because I know what that felt like to experience that and how hard she must have trained and worked and wanted it and pushed through on that day. And I was so proud of her for finding that gear and for pushing forward that bar for all American women. So like records are meant to be broken. That wasn't like it was mine to break, but not mine to hold. So I feel really proud that I was part of that American distance, like women that keep moving the bar forward, but it doesn't have to be me that holds it. But it was really fun to hold it. So I'm going to try to go get it back. But, but I'm sure Emily's going to be proud. If that happens, Emily was such a gracious athlete. She's an incredible person. Like I really respect her, like on and off the roads. And I know that she would be appreciative too of us continuing to move that bar forward.
Well, I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm just jumping in here having my
No,
best,
you are
my
great.
best conversation.
Yeah. No, it's great.
I mean, I've had goosebumps 3 or 4 times already. But anyway,
Yeah.
When you talk about that, Keira, I can tell that's not a put on scripted response from your PR agent. You can hear the heartfelt sincerity in that. And it's something I've always kind of wondered about in the last 25 years that I've run and kind of watched the professional runners. I was at the Olympic trials in Los Angeles. I forget what year that was. We went out there to run the marathon and then to watch the trials. And that was the year Shalane won.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget who her running partner was, but I was amazed. They came in 1 and 2 and they were just, I have a picture where they're side by side and you can't tell it's two people. They were that much in step. But I always wondered how, when you're running with your partner and it gets down to the last couple miles, what kicks in that thought process, and how do you interact with your teammate in that type of situation?
Yeah, I think we're all cut from the same cloth. We all are extremely competitive. We're all extremely driven, but there's a mutual respect among people that are like-minded with that. So, and I respect that they're always going to want to beat me. And I think they respect that I always want to beat them. So there's this, I don't know, right? And especially right now in women's distance running, it's a really, I don't know if collaborative is the right word, but it's a really nice place right now. Like I feel like we've all figured out that a rising tide raises all ships.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we appreciate the competition, and I want to see the best out of them because it gets the best out of me. And especially Shalane and Amy was her partner. They trained together. They did so many miles together. They knew what each other were capable of. So I think there's a natural, like, going through that type of struggling, I think bonds you in a way that is really, really special. But I also respect, I respect my competitors, but I want to beat them. And I like when I feel the same way from them to me. So there's a mutual respect, which I think is really powerful. But I also think with women, supporting women is like a big movement that we're seeing right now in our sport, which is really cool. I was part of the world championship team in 2022 in Oregon, and I was the alternate of the team. So I found out 2 weeks before a marathon that I was pulled up to be on that team. And so it was a little crazy that I said yes, because I hadn't been training for a marathon. But my two teammates, Sarah Hall and Emma Bates, they had been training for months, but the three of us made the team. Sarah finished 5th, Emma finished 7th, and I finished 8th. So I had I ran out of my mind for the lack of training that I had, but both of them waited at the finish line for me to come through. So as I came up and I could see them, I saw their arms raising, I saw them cheering for me, and it was so powerful. And I literally fell into their arms as I finished, and they were so proud of me, and I was so proud of them for crushing me. But I don't know, I feel like that day just said a lot about women's running right now, is that, we can all be supportive and fierce competitors at the same time. And it's a really beautiful thing when that lines up.
It is.
Keira, that resonates with me so much because I have two friends that I run with, and I'm going to get a little emotional with that, because when we cross that finish line, if they beat me, they're cheering me on. And if I beat them, I'm cheering them on. But yes, at the end of it, one of my friends, Jessica, she can run like a beast if she really wants to. And it irritates me to no end when she beats me. And that competitive spirit. So yes, I hear you. I hear you so much when I know, we have a love for each other in that race, but at the same time, that competition is fierce and it can run deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. You guys, we talk at our house a lot about my husband is a lacrosse coach for girls and young women. And it is that same healthy competitive relationship that has to be present, because I think there is a way to teach that. And I think it filters in not only to what, Sarah, you're talking about with your two, I know the two women you're talking about, they're your girls. And here, when you're talking about just that camaraderie and them just pouring out and waiting for you, it is such a testament to the hard work that goes into it, which I think really just flows into our professional and daily lives. It's an example that we set, not just as women, but as humans, to really encourage each other, to want to do really well. It is okay to perform at a really high level, because frankly, whether we're on the golf course, whether we're in tax, we're practicing these skills so that we can get better at something we enjoy, what we love to do. And when you cross that finish line and you're surrounded by awesome people who are cheering you on, there is just no greater feeling. And I think that's what we get to experience too, not just on the field, on the run, whatever it is, but in life. So any listener that's hearing this right now, that takeaway is huge. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, you guys. That was awesome.
Well, and the beauty of it is it's all relative. So whether you're running a 2:18 marathon or you're running a 5-hour marathon, when you made the comment about missing your bottle, most people listening to this episode may not understand what that does to someone at your level, but Sarah and I know what happens if you miss the water stop. It's pretty painful the next 2 miles. So that's the beauty of it, is we all experience, and that's one of the reasons I loved marathon running, was because you're running on the same course as the elites. And I actually have a claim to fame that I beat, is it Hallie Gabrielasi?
Yeah, Gabrielasi, yep.
Yeah, I think I beat him in the New York City Marathon because I finished. And so, I mean, this is a former world record holder that I kind of beat because he didn't finish, but we ran the same course. So
a win's a win. You got to the finish line first, Jeff.
There you go.
Right?
There you go. I need a shirt that says that. So, okay, Keira, we've gone through all this running stuff, and it's all just an amazing story. And talk a little bit about what we would refer to as the business of running. So when you start talking about, and you don't have to go into a whole lot of detail and go on forever, but just dealing with, you said you're a sponsored athlete and different sponsorships that you do and things like that. Was that all in place before the record was broken and then it got more so afterwards? But how does all that work?
Yeah. So I get this question all the time. I think it's my favorite is from middle schoolers. When I talk to middle schoolers, they're like, what does that mean? Does that mean you get free shoes? And it's like, well, yes. And also I get paid to wear those free shoes. But I think being like a professional runner is someone that their primary income comes from the sport. So, and typically in running, there are major shoe brands that will sponsor an athlete. So kind of like instead of joining a team like in the NFL, you join like a shoe brand pretty much in running. So there's Nike and there's Brooks and there's Saucony and Asics and Adidas and all the different brands sponsor athletes. So it's really an individual sport, but Nike at least has some hubs that we train together and we have some coaches. So there's some some community there. So I have a contract directly with Nike. And someone actually was asking me this a couple of weeks ago, like, so what does that mean? Does that mean like you do marketing for them? I'm like, no, like literally my job is to run. So, and they're like, okay, but like, do you work in the office also? And I'm like, no, they just pay me to run. Like my office is the trails and the track. And like, it's hard for people to understand because it is kind of out there, but I found a way to get paid to run. But pretty much in the contract, it says, you'll run at least, and every contract's a little different. So they'll say you'll need an X number of races per year. You have to be in our gear when training and racing or whatever. There's certain bonuses if you place in certain races or if you run certain times. And then there's different like benefits, like you could have a travel budget or like a physio budget or anything like that. And then a budget for some gear and everything too. And then outside of that, you can have additional sponsorships that don't compete with Nike, like the brand and the shoes or the apparel. They also do sunglasses and stuff. So I have a nutrition sponsor, which is a brand called Gen UCAN, and they do gels and sports drinks and protein drinks. So everything nutrition wise. And then Garmin running, I run in a Garmin watch. So they're actually one of my sponsors too. So all of my electronics are Garmin. And then I'm also sponsored by a company called Lagoon Pillows, and they're like my sleep sponsor.
All right.
Which is like half is the equation. I feel like half of it is the running and the other half is the fueling and recovery and the sleeping. And like sleeping is a free tool that we all have. That's like our best way to recover. So they've been so helpful for me and their pillows are incredible. So so I have a number of different sponsors like that. And then different races sometimes can pay you to come to races and give you appearance fees. Or if you run really well, you can win prize money. So it's kind of a funny little world, the running community, but there is like a whole business side of it, which has been fun to explore.
I want to jump back just half a step because you were talking about the contracts with running for a particular brand, and I was reading Meb's book. I think it was one of the last ones he put out, and Meb is a Meb Keflezighi. I also always mess up his last name, but an Olympic runner and done very well in the male ranks. But he talks about feeling that, especially when he got injured, there was this pressure that you can't just stay under contract if you're not winning races and doing well. And did that pressure ever, or does that pressure manifest itself in your world?
So I feel like my situation's a little bit different, and I feel real lucky that I came into the space as a business owner, like in real estate. And for me, like I really like the freedom of doing something outside of running. So no one could tell me what to do in running. So I like that, I could buy my own shoes, but I could buy whatever brand of shoes I wanted. I paid my own way to races, but I could go to whatever race I wanted to go to. So I felt like having a job outside of running gave me a lot of freedom and a lot of privilege that some people don't have in the running space. And I think also with that background, I still feel a lot of freedom because I know what's on the other side of running and I know how capable I am in different walks of life. So I think that's a really powerful thing for me. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of athletes don't have that because running is their A goal. It's all they've ever wanted to do. It's all they see, and they don't know what's on the other side. So I think that can be a little scary and hold a lot of pressure because if you're not performing, if you're not at that level, if you're not doing what you think you do, like your contract can be reduced or even dropped, which is, when your family's living off of that contract, that's a lot of pressure. But I've also, I found too, for me, when I can make decisions through the filter of what's the best for my running, where can I run the fastest, those typically have aligned with financially the best for me too. But I feel like for me, when I focus on what's the best for me, I don't know, speed wise, that kind of ends up being the best financially also when you can authentically go for things that you're really passionate about.
Yeah. So back to the business world now. I want to take that sidestep, but coming back to business, you're a real estate professional. Talk a little bit, give us a little bit of insight of not only how you kind of got into that, but what fueled that passion. Why was that a good fit for you? And what do you still do? And maybe what are you not doing as much of right now?
Yeah. So my mom was a realtor. My mom's mom was a realtor. So I'm a third generation realtor. So I feel like it's kind of in my blood. Like I was brought to open houses when I was little and my mom would tell me to go play in the backyard and really sell that backyard. So I kind of I knew real estate. I knew what it took. And I think once having a family, I like the freedom that real estate can bring, that it's really flexible until it's not at all. So I can do a lot of my paperwork and a lot of my office work when the kids are napping or when they're at school. And then with showing houses and all that stuff that's immediate, I have to drop everything and go. But I found that actually goes really well with running too, because most real estate does not happen in the morning. So I can get up, I can get my kids to school, do all of my runs, and then head to the home inspection or showings or whatever I need to. So I feel like the three really went together well until all three were busy at the same time. And then that became a lot. But yeah, I really enjoyed real estate. I love helping people with, the biggest purchase of their life. I felt like I was really good at it. And I think for the same reasons that I succeeded in running, I succeeded in real estate, that I collect all the information and I'm hardworking and I can be aggressive when I need to be aggressive, but understand there's, an emotional part too. So, and just I think the goal-oriented drive, I think really helped me too.
So are there things that you can equate to the running life that end up helping you immensely in the professional life as well, or the business life? What lessons do you take from running that help you in the business world?
I think the biggest thing, and this may sound backwards, is a little bit of patience too. And you have to do your homework, you have to put in the work, and you have to work towards things. So starting my business in real estate, before I really had very many clients, I was patient to learn everything I had to learn. I signed up for all the classes I could. I got every single certification I could. I was showing houses to friends and I was gathering information and I was doing all the homework. So come race time, I was ready for my clients when they needed me. So I think that translated well. And I think in real estate, you have to be a little aggressive sometimes. I mean, the last 10 years have been a really big seller's market. So buyers had a really tough time of coming in. So I had to be real creative. I had to be a squeaky wheel at times and really make sure that my contract got pushed to the top and learn how to be aggressive enough on behalf of my clients to make sure that we stood out. And then I think just running has taught me to advocate for myself, and same with real estate. You need to really advocate for yourself in real estate too. So yeah, there's a lot of, I think that, and also when I started too, I branded myself as the running realtor.
Okay.
And I think that like connected a lot of things for people. I don't know. I think because they saw how hard I worked in running. You can never see how hard a real estate agent's working, but they could see my character and my grit and my drive through how I was doing in these races or how I was showing up to the group runs all the time, just my consistency. So I think that really helped show the person I am in business through running, which is pretty unique. And I think a lot of people don't have that.
I was going to ask you about how often you would have clients come to kind of engage with you, and those that you either have the ones that go, "Oh, I'm here because you're Keira D'Amato," or you have ones that go, "Who?" I just saw your ad or whatever like that. So you actually did promote yourself to some extent using the running background.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a lot of clients that were moving into Richmond that were runners that then they knew I was also a realtor. So that really helped. And then I had a lot of clients I worked also in Washington, D.C. or right outside. So I had clients moving to Virginia in general or moving from D.C. down to Richmond. So I think that really, really helped. And then I had clients that had no idea who I was, that just got my name for a friend that, I'd represented. And then we're going somewhere and something comes out that that I'm racing world championships this weekend. And they're like, "Who are you?" Like, what? So that's pretty funny too, like finding out the back door that I also run a lot. But I would print out like little maps of like wherever their house was. I'd print out a map of all the great places to run or walk or jog in the community around their house. So it was just a fun little quirk that led me to stand out in the real estate world.
Well, you got to use whatever you can.
Do that, Jess. We need to figure out how to bring that in with CPA. We need to.
Yeah, well, we used to have
all about branding, people. It's all about branding.
And that's why KP's with us. Well, Keira, you have a book coming out, and we're real excited to have this discussion with you so that we can help promote that and everything. But it's called "Don't Call It a Comeback." First thing I need to know is, did you hear from LL Cool J's people at all about that title, or was it kosher?
It's kosher. Yeah, it's totally kosher. I do like that song though a lot.
I can't get it out of my head. But it comes out in September, early September. The title, "Don't Call It a Comeback," but the part on the jack or the cover that really connected with me, it says, "What happened when I started chasing PRs and started chasing happiness?"
Oh.
And yeah, I'm about ready to be a little emotional with that.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Talk about what inspired the book and what that, I'm sure you and your people worked hard on what that statement was to put on the cover. Why that statement?
So that statement, I think, sums up what the book's all about. Like in my round one of running, I was so focused on how fast I could run, what place I was going. I was always looking for the next thing. And I think my happiness was dependent on how I was performing and running. And that's a really precarious place to be. Like when you're having a good or bad day based on your run or your race, and you're letting that define who you are outside of running. So in round two, I totally flipped it upside down. And I started chasing goals that authentically excited me. I started going after things that maybe no one else cared, like about the 10-mile record that I got was during COVID. I set up my own race. I called it the Up Dog 10 mile because what's up, dog?
Nice.
I was doing all these things that were like really making me happy. And I was nervous to pursue happiness in that way because I didn't know how, could I find success by prioritizing happiness? But I needed running. Like my husband at the time was deployed all the time, everywhere. He was gone all the time, but by the time my daughter was, I think, 2 or 3, he'd been gone for over 1.5 years. So I'm, a mom of a military spouse who's totally gone. I have 2 kids under 2 years old, and I was really struggling. And so when I put running back in my life, it was for me and it was to make me happy. But I also wanted to see what I could do. But I so desperately needed it to be a source of happiness and joy and just a little release from my otherwise chaotic day. So I wanted to see how fast I could go, but I needed it to remain happy for me. So I think that in round 2, I figured out if I prioritize happiness, if I go after things that really excite me, I found even more success than I did in round 1. So I think that's kind of what the subtitle means to me, is that it's fun isn't inversely connected to success. So I found a way to do both.
I was writing down a note, and you called it not an authentic goal, but what did you call it? An authentic what?
I think maybe I said goal, authentic goal, or
okay,
yeah,
but it's something more authentic and that's bringing the happiness than a specific number or result or anything like that. That's what you're getting at.
Yeah, because it means something to you. And it may not mean anything to anyone else, but it means something to you. And I think when you can go after those things, it's easier almost to reach them because it does mean something to you. And it's so easy going after something when it gets hard to talk yourself out of, did I even want this in the first place? But when you can answer back, like, no, this means something to me. And maybe no one else in the world cares about it. And it really doesn't matter if I hit it or not, but it does mean something to me. And I think that's like, don't call it a comeback is a giant joke to me, because this round 2 wasn't a comeback. Because that would mean that I like set out on day 1 when I tried to run 3 minutes, that I was aiming for where I was going. I had no idea where I was going, but I wanted to have fun. I wanted a little joy in my life, and I wanted running to make me feel good about myself. So that kind of is a funny, never once have I ever called this a comeback. So don't call it.
You call it round 2. I love that you call it round 2.
Pursuing joy, I think, is something that it's almost a declaration. I'm pursuing joy. And there are so many people who would see that as, what? That's so soft. It's like, never, ever confuse pursuing joy with weakness. Because I think it takes a fierce competitor and a champion's heart to actually declare, no, I've made a choice. I'm going to pursue joy. And I put that up against anything, any day.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's good.
So you were proficient at running, you were proficient with being a real estate agent, and now you're becoming proficient in writing. So talk a little bit about, how did you make that transition, and what did you have to train yourself in writing similar to the way you would train yourself in running? Was it natural? What did you have difficulties with? All that.
Yeah, that also took a lot of patience. I guess my secret to anything, I guess, is patience. But I have a co-writer also who's helped me a lot. And when I was interviewing her, I told her that my whole life I've gotten negative feedback from my English teachers, my, all of the grammar, whatever, that I write in the way that I talk. And it feels too conversational. And I've always been told that's bad. So when I interviewed her, I was like, I want this to sound like I'm talking. And I've always been critiqued in a negative way, but I want this to feel like a conversation. I want it to feel like I'm sitting down with someone, drinking a cup of coffee by the fire, just talking about my experience and inviting them to learn from my mistakes and to laugh at my, my stupid stuff I do, which is a lot. And hopefully be inspired by some of the lessons that I've learned and allow them to kind of give them permission to pursue whatever they want fearlessly in their own life. And I think I learned a lot from running and the time that I wasn't running. And I think it's kind of those life lessons that set me up in round 2. And each chapter is kind of one of those life lessons. And it shares, like, we talked about not being afraid to fail. So that's a whole chapter. Like, failure's okay. Like, it's instead of win or lose, win or learn. Learn your lesson, correct, grow from it, and move on. And when you can kind of tailor it that way. So every single race, I'm either hitting my goal or I'm learning something. So I'm going to become better for it on the other side. And I think when we can change our perspective a little bit, and that's actually, I think the biggest thing in the book too, is like, I've had a huge perspective change in round 2 that I didn't have in round 1. And maybe it's becoming a mother. Maybe it's a little bit of maturity. Maybe it's that I'm now 40 and just see life in a different way. But I think there's all these lessons that I wish I would have known to Keira in round 1 that I think it could have really helped me. And I think a lot of people going through similar things. So I really hope that my book is a permission for anyone to take something off the back burner and just fearlessly, authentically go for it in their own way.
More nuggets there, whether it's physically and with something like running or starting a business and getting things off the ground there for sure. Is there any part of the book that is, because we're all going to get it, we're all going to read it, is there any part of the book that's especially emotional or has a more in-depth meaning to you than another part?
Yeah, it was interesting to me because I was asked to record the audiobook for it, which I've never done. I've never done anything like that. And Originally, I was like, no, you need a professional. I'm not a professional. And they're like, I think it would be special to hear it in your own voice. And after recording, I kind of understood why, because reading it back, I mean, I've lived those things. I've lived the stories. I've written about the stories. I've edited. I've gone through copywriting. Like I've read this book over and over and over and over again. But reading it out loud brought all sorts of different emotions that I didn't expect. And I think particularly some of the lessons that I've learned with my daughter, like really were pretty emotional for me. I think there's a lesson the very end of the book, which was very emotional reading back. But there was a lot of things reading back that kind of surprised me, like what brought up emotion and what didn't. But yeah, I think you'll be able to hear it in my voice in the audiobook too, which I think will be an interesting journey for people to go on.
Well, given that you said you wanted it to sound like you were just having a conversation, I was wondering specifically if you did the Audible version or not. So we'll have to get it on both sides. I've got some free credits. I can get it when
you can
when
take
it comes
me
up.
along.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, people ask me as like a long-winded question, and I'm like, this is a long run story. Like, save this question for me for a long run. We need at least like 15, 20 miles to get through this answer. So this is definitely a book for the long run. So yeah, bring it with you when you run. That'll be good.
That's awesome. So with this book, Keira, is there, if you could go back and give it to your younger self, is there a particular moment in time that you feel like you would do that, and why that particular moment?
Oh, I've never been asked this before, and I just got the chills everywhere as you asking. I think I could have 100% used this. And I think I'd probably give it to like Keira starting college and trying to figure out who Keira is. And I think that, like, I talk about different superhero powers, but I think one thing right now is I'm not just a runner. I have a very full life. It's a very balanced life. And even just like a bad run or a bad race is just that. It's not even a bad day. And it's because I'm a very full person. So I think that giving this book to Keira at 18, I think could have really helped me fill my life and realize how much more I am than just a runner, which takes the power away from any one performance or any one day. And I think that kind of just helps separate it and put it all into perspective, I think.
That is really good. Actually, I was hoping you were asked that question, Jeff, because I saw that in your list of questions. My friend Jessica, her daughter, is just graduated from high school, and she had to make the difficult decision that she was not going to run in college. And she is struggling with that. So just hearing that is such a good nugget that it's not all about running. It's not who you are. And that you've got to make a full life, that there's so much more to it than running. But running is just that. It's just running.
Right. Well, and how lucky for her that it's running she can take along with her for her whole life. It doesn't have to be structured. She doesn't have to be part of a team. It doesn't have to be regimented. She can be whatever she wants to be with running. And you can even be a runner that doesn't run for a while too, while you're doing other stuff. So, and that's, I think, my favorite part about running is it's this like ever changing, ever flowing, like partner in your life that can be everything you want it to be, or it can be nothing at all. And it just is so flowy in that way that it really is a gift.
Love that. Love it.
Have you considered doing counseling sessions for, like, I don't know, 55-year-old men who are getting slower and ran Boston a couple times and thought they were really fast?
Jeff, I'm in. If you talk about you, I'm in.
New branding opportunity, Keira. Hey, Keira.
That would be
So,
that would be my next book. Don't call it a counselor.
so the book is out for purchase on the 9th of September. Can you pre-order it? Is that something you could do as well? And where can you do that?
Yeah, it's available for pre-order now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy your books. And then however you buy your audiobook, it will be available everywhere too. But pre-orders are super helpful. And like, definitely a big goal of mine to get this outside of just the running world. Because I think, like in the prologue, I say, like, this isn't a book about running. It's a book about a girl who happens to run. And I talk about running a lot, but I feel like running is my metaphor in life that I've learned a lot of lessons for, but it doesn't have to be running for the reader. It could be yoga or jazzercise or bog snorkeling or glass cow collecting, whatever you're passionate about. I'm hoping that you could apply the lessons that I learned through running to that. So, so pre-orders really help. And yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, Keira, you're a busy person and we very much appreciate your time. But before we let you go, there was one thing that we didn't provide for you on the list of questions, and that is our traditional rapid fire questions that we throw out at the very end, if that's okay, if you want to play along for a second.
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, let's get this out of the way right now. Dogs or cats?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go cats. I have two
Okay.
cats right now. Cats.
There we go. Okay. Runner's high, old wives' tale, or fact?
Fact.
Okay. Every time?
That's a fact. Most of the time.
Okay. What's your most bizarre training or race day routine?
Oh man. Okay. That's a really good question. Okay. The most bizarre training method I ever had was when I was nursing and I was craving ice cream all the time. And I was eating too much ice cream. So I decided I was going to put myself on the root beer float training plan, which I do not recommend. I do not recommend this for everyone, but I think there is a point to this story. But I told myself if I could run 10 miles in one day, that I would get a root beer float at night. Because I was eating way too much ice cream and root beer floats. But then I started just running 10 miles every day so I could get a root beer float because I really love root beer floats. And I don't think that's a good training plan, but I do think that we should celebrate small wins. And that's what that is to me, that in the time where had two kids really young in nursing, I was celebrating small wins and small victories in a fun way. And and I don't think you need food doesn't need to be a reward. You can have a root beer float just because you want a root beer float. But for me, that made it really, really fun.
Well, I was going to ask what your biggest cheat food was, and sounds like it's root beer floats. So
yeah, also root beer floats. Yeah, or Oreos. I love Oreos.
Oreos. Okay.
Yes.
If you had a time machine, what period of history would you go back to and why?
Oh my goodness, this is fun. Wow. Okay, the first thing that came to my head is 1984 because it was the year I was born, but it was also the first year they allowed the Olympics to have the women's marathon. And Joan Benoit Samuelson won gold that year. And the first year they ever allowed women to run a full marathon. And that just is such an iconic moment in women's running that would be really, really cool to experience that. And I've watched that part of the race and the announcers are saying, oh no, she's gone out too fast. Do we think women are going to be able to make it the whole distance? And she finished so strong. She looked incredible and she won gold. And that is just an incredible moment. So that is the first thing that came to mind. So I'm just, this is rapid fire.
That's really cool. That's really cool. All right. Last two. What's your guilty pleasure on your Spotify playlist?
Oh man. Okay. So I just heard there's a song. Okay. This is really funny, but Jimmy Fallon had a weird little game on his show that they bring a singer on and then they mix a different song and a genre. So there's this guy named Chance the Rapper, which I don't listen to a lot of his stuff, but he did a Western country version of Nelly's Hot in Here. And I listened to it and it was so funny that I put it on my Spotify and I listened to it on repeat for a while. And now that has my Spotify algorithm is all sorts of wacky with a kind of Hot in Here country version. So that's my latest Spotify song.
We'll have to check that out. All right. Last question. What's the last show or series that you binged?
Oh man. Okay. Always Drive to Survive. I feel like I'm binging that all the time. But I just started, I went through, Apple TV. I think I just went through Apple TV and watched all of Apple TV. I watched, I don't know, Good Neighbors and Severance and Stick and I don't know.
Bad Sisters aren't Bad Sisters.
I haven't watched Bad Sisters. I guess I haven't watched it all, but Shrinking was hilarious.
Oh,
Shrinking's good.
Shrinking, I think, is my favorite TV show I've ever watched.
Yeah.
I'm ready for that new season. Yeah.
Me too.
Severance got a little weird in that second season, the back end of that second season, but it was really good. And I guess there's Ted Lasso's in that list too. That's where everyone starts, right?
Yes. So I think I'd just go Apple TV. Everything on Apple TV.
Okay, good choice. One of the things that we enjoy about Rapid Fire is that no matter who we have on our episode, it just shows them as normal, everyday people. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. And so we appreciate you sharing that with us, Keira. And just thanks for being on the show today, and just so much really good stuff there, whether you're just an individual that likes to exercise or you're a business owner, just a lot of really good truth nuggets out there. So we're excited about your book coming out, and we're looking forward to releasing this around that time. So hopefully our tens of listeners will just make that thing go to a bestsellers list, that's for sure. But thanks for being with us. As always, if you are listening and you have any questions or comments, please email us at podcast@cckcpa.com. That's podcast@cckcpa.com. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, or if you just like to tell Sarah how great her rapid fire questions usually are, because she's the one who does it. As always, thank you to CCK for allowing us this platform to do this. To KP, thank you for keeping us on track. Robert, for your intro and outro music. Clarence, for Tulsa Internet Marketing Services, for keeping us on the straight and narrow with production, and Natalie and Emily for getting us across the finish line every week that we do one of these. So again, Keira, thank you so much. Thanks for making this episode special. And we hope that you join us next time as these two CPAs get together to have a chat, and you get to find out who's on the mic.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute accounting, tax, legal, or financial advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, laws and regulations change and individual circumstances vary. Always consult with a qualified CPA or professional advisor before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations they are affiliated with. Listening to this podcast does not create a client-accountant relationship. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to those terms. And that's a wrap for this episode of Two CPAs in the Mic. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Have questions or ideas for a topic? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@cckcpa.com.